I'm going to go through 30 different lighting setups and show you how I lit every single one of these photos. So in case you didn't know, this video actually started out as a project where I was trying to come up with different creative ways to light a portrait instead of sticking with my usual routine. I actually made a video about this here, and if you're interested you can check it out here. It's about 4 minutes long and it kind of goes over the whole gist of what I was doing. So I'm going to go through those 30 photos that I shot here and show you how I lit every single one of them. I have lighting diagrams and everything, and this is meant to be more of an overview video of each of these photos here. I'm going to put out smaller videos in the future here of more in-depth detail about all the different lighting setups and things for specific photos. But anyway, let's get started here. So this photo here is actually day one, and it's kind of a variation of something that I normally do here. I turned my body about, like 30 degrees or so, and kind of faced towards the softbox. I had the softbox here at about like 45-degree angle from me, and I had another one behind me with a red gel on it, and that was kind of put here in the kind of like a rim light on the back and my shoulders and a little bit in my hair there, just to kind of add some separation, some color into it, a little bit of interest. And so both of these lights are actually set to the exact same power setting. I didn't want one light overpowering the other. I wanted to meter for both of the lights, and so you have a nice even balance, so nothing gets blown out and nothing kind of gets cast in a shadow, but looks pretty cool. So from there we go here into, I have no clue what this pose is. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and do a pose. But anyway, this is an interesting lighting setup. I like this one a lot. I use this from time to time. Not exactly like this, I usually add in a little bit of fill. But here you can see I have two softboxes directly behind me out of the frame, kind of pointed at me at a 45-degree angle, and they're above me and then kind of tilted down a little bit, so they're overhead. Once again, both of these lights are the exact same power settings because I wanted an even light across the two from behind me. So this kind of creates a nice, really dark shadow here in the face and up in the front, and creates a really kind of dramatic lighting on the sides of the body and kind of light behind it. It's overall kind of like a more edgier, a little athletic kind of look, even though I'm not doing anything athletic here. And I do want to mention, because I forgot to mention, all of these photos were taken with no more than 3 lights. I wanted to limit myself to not using more than 3 lights. So you're going to see some things that are taken with 2 lights, some were taken with 3, some with 1, and maybe some without any lights. You'll see in just a moment. So here for the third photo, this is kind of like a beauty lighting, although, you know, we don't have a beauty as a subject model here. Sorry, you gotta stare at my face. But it's fairly simple, and it's just 2 softboxes here directly in the middle, kind of casting all the light, killing all of the shadows that possibly exist, and just really, really great for people who have amazing skin. So not me, but creates this really cool catch light in the eyes you can see here with the little 2 rectangles. I like it, some people don't like it, it all depends on what you're going for. But that's that, pretty simple. Day 4 here, this one was a little interesting for me because I used 2 lights to kind of simulate one really big wide light. And so here this is kind of like a wraparound light. 2 lights with I think like 3-4 foot softboxes here to kind of create like a massive wide softbox that kind of wraps around the subject, but only on the one side here. Nice soft pleasing light that kind of gently falls into the shadow onto the left side of the photo there. And this way you also have the back of the person lit as well as the front of the person. It's almost kind of simulating like a big giant window light. Not exactly, of course, it all depends on your window, but anyway, it's a cool curved wraparound light here. So here on the 5th photo, I wanted to go with a little bit more drama, and this is the side view here. It's just one light directly above the subject. So what this does is cast a lot of light here on my hair and all along the hoodie and everything like that, as well as a little bit on my chest, but it casts everything within inside of the hood into shadow. So it's kind of like an interesting cool little effect with dramatic shadows under the nose and under the lips here, and then the chin and things like that. And also a little bit here over the overhang of the hood where it's in shadow. Overall, pretty cool, dramatic photo. Not great for every single photo, but you know, for the photos it works well for. So this, another simple one light setup. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually create silhouettes on a black backdrop. A lot of people think of a silhouette as black shadow of a person on a white backdrop. That's not necessarily true. You can do all kinds of different things with silhouettes, including on a black backdrop. So here what I did was actually create a rim light by just placing one bare speed light, or you know, it doesn't have to be a speed light, any kind of strobe or light, whatever you have, just a light without a modifier. So it was a really harsh light directly behind me, and that created this cool rim light in my hair and along the sides of my neck and down my shoulders, but cast everything else in a shadow. So it's an interesting take on a silhouette, but using a black backdrop. This is a pretty standard kind of classic staple in lighting. This is half light or split lighting, depends on whatever you want to call it here. It's pretty simple. One light directly to the side, doesn't matter which side of your subject, creates a really sharp line right down the face. This is usually used a lot more in headshots as opposed to full body shots or things like that, just because you get to really emphasize the light here. And so the whole right side of the image here is cast in the shadow. A little bit of my hair kind of has some spillover, but other than that, it's pretty much lit on one side and dark on the other side. So day 8 here, I actually wanted to mess around with adding the lights into the scene. If you've ever seen any of my photography before, you know this is something I really love to do. I love incorporating the lights into the scene. The great thing about this just adding lights in general, is that you can actually use the light for your subject. So it's kind of like a dual use thing. You get to use it as a backdrop or a prop or whatever it may be, but also influence the lighting in your subject matter. So here you can see I have two giant softboxes directly behind me, and they're partially in the frame here. And these kind of create this light that just wraps around a little bit over my shoulders and everything. Just as you saw on day 2, where you had the lights right behind me here, I would have a really harsh shadow here directly in front of me. So I wanted to add another light in to illuminate the face a little bit more, while still kind of casting some shadow on the right side of my face, or I guess that's actually the left side of my face. My bad. Here on day 9, I was messing around with using a snoot with my speed light here. And a snoot is something that you add onto the front of your light to really narrow down the direction of light. So you're controlling just how much of the light is spilling into where. Unlike, say, a softbox, which diffuses the light and spreads it everywhere, a snoot does the exact opposite. It makes a very direct source of light as opposed to a diffused light, like a softbox. And here, I actually didn't have a snoot. What I did was create my own using construction paper. I'll show you a photo here. You can just get a snoot. You don't have to use that. But I wanted to create this really narrow rectangle right over where my eyes were. Even though I had positioned it so that the snoot was just barely out of frame. If I had moved it any closer, it would have actually been in the frame. And the snoot was letting about maybe like a 1/4 inch of light out, and yet it was still too much light. I just wanted to focus directly on the eyes there. But, you know, I still think it's pretty cool. I also wanted to illuminate the side of the face here, which is why I added in a very, very low power setting light here with this softbox to the right side of my face. So here on day 11, this is actually another kind of classic staple in the photographer's repertoire of lighting techniques. TM. This is clamshell lighting. And so clamshell lighting, as you can see in my amazing diagram here, I use a softbox, you can use a beauty dish. Really, I just wanted a very nice, soft, diffuse light. And then I have a silver reflector held in my hand and angled towards my head. And so clamshell lighting is really great for headshots. And not only that, but you can see in my eyes here, it's actually creates a really cool catch light in the eyes. You may notice this funky pattern here in my eye. Well, I actually made a clamshell lighting tutorial that you can check out if you're interested, where I go into more in depth about the nuances of clamshell lighting. But basically, if you're wearing glasses and you don't have anti-glare reflection coating things on your lenses, you're going to get this reflection here under the eyes if you're using a silver reflector. So if you don't want that, use a white reflector instead. It's pretty much the same effect with just a little bit less light being bounced back up onto your subject. So here's day 11, and I didn't make a lighting diagram. And the reason I didn't make a lighting diagram is because you can see the lights in the scene. So again, I like incorporating lights into the scene here, and I thought this was kind of a playful kind of creative lighting thing. And you know, my shirt kind of emphasizes the fun in the photo. I know it's really exciting and super fun, but I like it. It's cool. I like incorporating these lights. So this is actually, these are two Spiderlight TD6s from Westcott. There's 6 different light bulbs on each of these speed rings here to either side of me, and I just put them directly into the frame. It's kind of a harsh lighting because there's no modifier in these things, but it creates this really great strip of shadow right down the center of the face and things like that. It's a really dramatic kind of harsh lighting, but I like it. If you don't like how harsh it is, well, let's go to day 12 here. This is the exact same lighting setup. I just pushed the lights further away from me and I added some softboxes. So you can see here kind of what I did. Again, both the same power settings, so this is more of a softer, more diffused look than the last one, while still giving you that kind of dramatic look in the light and the shadow play here, especially in the crinkles in the clothing and things like that. Here, day 13, I went back to messing around with a snoot. So once again, I made a snoot out of construction paper in the shape of a circle, and I put a red gel on the speed light, and I put it as close as I could to me without being in the frame. And I put it right over my chest. And this took a little bit of trial and error because it was a speed light, so there was no modeling light to help me figure out where exactly the light's being pointed out here. And you can see there's a little bit of spillover on my chest here and a little bit here just to the left of the circle, where I didn't do a good enough job of securing all the seals to make sure that it was just the circle. But I think it came out pretty good. And you know, to add to the drama, I added a softbox here just to the side, a little bit in front, so it's not completely to the side here. So here is a really kind of awesome, simple lighting technique, and I use this a lot in portraiture. I have a light here in a softbox, of course, because I love softboxes, apparently, about a 45-degree angle towards me, and I have a speed light, just a bare speed light in the back behind me, pointed right at me to give me a nice rim light. So it's kind of like that silhouette photo you saw earlier, except for now I'm adding a light in the front, so that's not just a silhouetted rim light, but looks pretty cool. So once again, day 15, I am adding lights into the photo, but this time it's not just the lights here. So you can see here in the setup photo, I have 2 softboxes, 45-degree angle to my person. So they're behind me, but also slightly to the side of me. One of the lights has a blue gel and the other light has a red gel. These are actually not gels. I actually used cellophane and wrapped the softbox in the cellophane. Here in the photo you can kind of see the softbox, also the cellophane in the light, and so the red light casts a red on the outside of the blue light, and the blue light casts a blue on the outside of the red light, so it gives this kind of like pinkish, bluish, purple, red. It's just all kinds of cool color, and again, because there's no light directly in front, we have a really nice hard shadow right there in the front. And if you're curious why I used cellophane other than the fact that it looks cool in this photo, I actually made a video about that here too, so if you're interested, you can check that out. Let's move on here to day 16. And so here we have a 2-light setup. Here I have one light, 45-degree angle to me in the front here, and another light directly to the side of me. And I have the light directly to the side of me at a little bit higher power than the one in front. Not so much more powerful that it actually blew out the highlights here in my hair or anything, but just made it a little bit more bright. And you can kind of see this dark shadow here a little bit in my face and in my hair, where the two lights don't overlap. So it's pretty even lighting, although not as even as day 3, since there is this kind of darker shadow right here. It's a little bit more subtle, but cool nonetheless. Day 17, I used a strip light, and a strip light is, well, it's a softbox, but in a strip. You can find them anywhere. You can make your own with that same construction paper that I used earlier. I mean, you know, not very professional looking, but it works if you want to take a softbox you already have and turn it into a strip light. Strip light creates a very narrow field of light, obviously, because it's just a small strip of light. So the light fall off from the front to the back of me is a little bit more dramatic than it would be with a typical softbox. Day 18, I got a little creepy here on you. This is old school horror lighting at its finest, the kind you would see in those old black and white films. So all I did was take a bare speed light, held it in my hand directly under my chin, and voila, horror lighting. And you don't have to use a speed light, you can use a flashlight or a little LED light, whatever you've got. I just thought it was a fun little addition to the lighting setup here. So day 19, I wanted to mess around with some more hard lighting. A lot of these photos are using softboxes or strip lights or some kind of soft modifier. Here I use a speed light. Again, you don't have to use a speed light. That's just what I was using for this. So I have a speed light just off to the left of the camera, out of the frame here. And a lot of people steer away from hard lighting in portraits because, well, it's not a very flattering light source. If you want to flatter your subject, you probably wouldn't want to use a hard light. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, and you can use it for a really interesting effect. You can see here in my hair the fall off between highlights and shadows is very dramatic. It's very hard, hence why it's called hard lighting. And so you can really see all the little tiny strands of hair and the layers in my hair and things like that. And you know, I think hard lighting works really well for things like where you're trying to show all those little details and you want to really bring them out, maybe like an intricate pattern on a dress or some kind of clothing. It just kind of really emphasizes an image where you're going to go from shadow to light to shadow. Day 20, I went with like a on-stage kind of lighting thing here, and I realized it doesn't really make any sense for me to be having headphones on, because if I'm on stage, I'm not going to be having headphones as if I was in a studio. I don't know what I was thinking, but, you know, it works, I guess. Again, it's really just about the light. Who cares about the headphones or whatever? So here I have one speed light, just bare speed light, in the frame off to the side, pointed not quite directly at the lens, just a little to the left of it, and it's creating this really cool kind of flare. You can see over here on the right, there's a little bit of a flare. And you'll also notice here in the lighting diagram, I have two light sources, both with softboxes, but the one light I don't have on. And see, when I took the photo, I had the one light here to the right of the image on, but there was so little light here in the left side of the frame that I added in another light source. But that kind of killed the image, and it was a little too flat. I didn't want to go with that again because it was just kind of like day 3, but with a speed light in the back. So I turned it off, and I took this photo, and I actually used the softbox as a giant bounce. So even though the softbox wasn't on, the light from the other light coming out of that softbox was bouncing around onto me, back over onto the softbox, and then back over onto the left side of my face here, or the right side of my face, the left side of the image. And so I just wanted to point that out. You know, if you do have another lighting source around and you don't have a bounce card or something giant and white to bring light back into your image here, you can use a big softbox as a fill. Not only that, but it adds to the catch lights in the eyes. Of course, with the glasses right over my eye here, you can't really tell the catch lights too much, but it's subtle and it's there. So with this photo, I'm using a strip light. similar to what I used, and I think it was day 17. The difference here is this is not a strip light. It's a softbox that I modified to turn into a strip light. Like I said, if you don't have a strip light, you can modify one in your own. But here, instead of just having a strip light that I'm modifying, a softbox that I'm modifying into strip light, I'm modifying this into a very, very, very thin strip light. This is actually only letting through about an inch of light. It's the entire width of the softbox, which I believe was like 3 feet long, but it's only 1 inch wide. So it's letting out a very narrow source of light here. And you can see this here in the image where it casts a lot of this in the shadow. And just looking at the light difference between my face here and my neck and then looking over in the shoulder, it's very clear that there's an exposure difference. And my shoulder's not that far away from my neck. It's only a few inches, but just a few inches away is enough to create that drastic of a exposure difference. I think it looks really, really cool. Plus, you get this really sweet looking light here in my glasses. So here, once again, I am adding a light into the scene. Quite a shocker, I know. But this is kind of like reverse clamshell lighting. So what's going on here is I have, just like in clamshell lighting, a light above and tilted down towards me. But instead of in the front of me, I have it behind me. And I also have that reflector, like I did in the clamshell lighting. So what's going on here is, because this light's right behind me, it's giving me this kind of rim light glow around the back of me and around my shoulders and everything. But when I have that reflector there, it bounces the light from behind me directly into my face. And so the front of my face isn't cast in a shadow anymore. But you do lose a lot of light by the time it hits the reflector and bounces back onto the front of my body and face here. So the exposure behind me in my hair and the rim light and everything is brighter than it is in the front. And so it kind of creates this cool like glowing effect. And of course, you can get this exact same photo without putting the light into the scene. Just lift the light a little bit higher and it'll turn out pretty much exactly the same as it is here. But you know, where's the fun in that? I have to add in the light. Also note silver reflectors, so I have that crazy effect under my eyes here. And if you don't want that, just use a white reflector instead, or any kind of white bounce. It doesn't necessarily have to be a reflector. Day 23, I wanted to mess around with light on the actual background. Now this is still a black background. I didn't change anything. It's a very, very wrinkly black background, which you don't see when everything is cast in the shadow because it just fades to black. But what I did here was actually take a speedlight and I once again created a snoot. I used the exact same circular snoot that I had created for the little heart gunshot kind of laser pointer thing from earlier, and I pointed it directly onto the background. Just out of frame here in this photo is where the end of the snoot is. So at the beginning it's a very, small narrow light, and then as it goes all the way across the background, it spreads out a little wider. And once again, you can see I didn't fix the light spillage from that snoot that I created. As you can see, there's light coming out outside of the intense beam of light. There's a little light all around it. You can fix that by just not letting any light leaking out, but I think it looked cool, so why not keep it? And then I had a light 45 degrees in front of me and one behind me 45 degrees. And so here, day 24, I wanted to point out that while I've been using, softboxes or speedlights, the great thing about light is everyone has a light source in their pocket. You pull out your phone, you have a big screen, depending on the size of your phone, that has light that you can cast on your subject. Your phone also has a little flashlight function that you can use to introduce light into your subject. So here what I have is a iPad that I'm holding in my hand, and I'm just using the light solely from the screen of the iPad and just casting directly onto my face. And you can use any kind of device to light your subject up. You can use a TV, you can use a phone, a tablet, whatever it may be. Try to think of some unconventional light sources with the electronics that you have, try to incorporate them into your subject matter. And remember earlier when I said I wasn't going to use more than 3 lights, some are going to have 3, 2, 1, and then no lights? Well, this is one of those without any lights. Of course, that's not actually true. You can see there's light in the image. What's actually going on here is I'm using window light. So I'm not technically using any light outside of the ambient light coming through the window. I know, that's still technically a light source, but let's just, humor me here. So I don't have a lighting diagram for this one. I'm standing about 2 feet away from a big, maybe like 5 foot by 5 foot window. Actually, come to think of it, it's probably bigger than that, but window light, pretty simple. Just a reminder that even if you're in the studio using a black backdrop, you don't necessarily have to buy expensive lights or, pull out all the lighting gear when window light can look just as beautiful as any other kind of light source. And so day 26, I wanted to mess around with color, and I feel like I haven't done enough with color in these photos. This is actually the exact same lighting setup as day 3, where I have the light box 45 degrees on either side of me in the front. But this time, each one of them are gelled with different lights. There's a red gel on the right here and a blue gel on the left. So the reason I used the exact same lighting just with color was to make a point here. Let me show you what this photo looks like in black and white. Kind of boring, right? I mean, it's cool earlier as a headshot because you get that cool catch light in the eye, but it's kind of flat, boring light. When you remove the color, it becomes a completely uninteresting photo. But we go back to the color here, you can see the highlights are a lot less colorful and the shadows have a much stronger, deeper color, like especially here around the nose where you can see on the right and left side of the nose there's a deep blue and a deep pinkish red over here. And so adding color to what normally would have been a flat lighting setup kind of brought life into the photo. And you'll hear a lot of people saying like, oh, this photo doesn't look good in color, but it came to life in black and white. It's interesting to note that this is actually the reverse of that. You don't usually hear people saying, oh, this looks like crap in black and white, but when I added color into it, it brought a whole new dimension to the image. But I really wanted to just kind of emphasize that you can use color to bring something to life that otherwise would have been a more dull, boring photo. And so day 27, we're almost done here. Hang in there with me. This one, I actually wanted to mess around with some more kind of special effects. Right here in my hand, you can kind of see there's this cool glow coming from the inside of my hand, and it looks like this light is coming from nowhere. It's just coming out of my chest here. What's actually going on is I have a flashlight concealed in my hand that you can't see in the photo. You can use any kind of small light source. I just wanted to point out here that, again, just like using any kind of electronic device as a light source, you don't necessarily have to use big expensive lights to get cool lighting effects here. And I use the flashlight, but you don't necessarily have to use a flashlight if you find any kind of small little light source that you can conceal in your hand here. Get creative and experiment with different things, because that's really what this is all about, and what photography is all about. It's about creating interesting images with really good light. And because I didn't want the flashlight to be the only light in the scene, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see anything else, I did add a softbox here in front of me. And so here, day 28, I am on a yoga ball, because why not be on a yoga ball? And for this lighting setup, I actually have 2 lights on either side of me, but they're not directly pointed at me. I have them pointed and kind of tilted down so they don't affect my face as much as they're affecting my body in the yoga ball below. So then I added a third light in that was only affecting my face and nothing else. So by feathered, I mean I tilted the softbox up until the light no longer was hitting anything else on my body or my neck, just my face. And I did this because, as you saw earlier in the 2 lights on either side of you, it casts a really kind of dramatic shadow down the middle while giving the highlights on the sides. And I like that, but I wanted the face to be more well lit. And plus, it kind of gives this nice kind of gradient going down here where there's more light cast up in the top and less down once you get towards my torso and my legs down there. And I said it was only pointing at the head, but of course there's some spillover in on the neck and the upper part of my chest and things like that. So you may be looking at this and thinking, wait a minute, you already did half lighting. But this actually isn't split lighting. What this is actually an error. But this was not a mistake. I didn't do this accidentally and come up with this photo. I knew this was going to happen going in. I have a light to the side and to the front here, pointed directly at me, but I have my shutter speed set at 1/500th of a second. My camera's sync speed, the fastest that the flash will be able to sync with the camera, is only 1/250th of a second. So what's happening in the right side of the image here, that the shutter is actually moving too fast. The light doesn't reach that side of the image before the shutter opens and closes. And of course you can use HSS, high speed sync, if you have it, but that wasn't really the point here. The point is that you can turn something that most people would think is a negative. This is a bad thing. You don't want this. Oh, well, you don't want half your frame lit, but you can use it to create an effect if you know what's going to happen beforehand. And that's kind of the great thing about photography and lighting here, is that you can turn something that's looked at as a negative and create a very kind of powerful, interesting photo. At least I think it's an interesting photo, because I can't tell you what settings to use because I don't know what the sync speed of your camera is. The faster the shutter speed you use, the more black there's going to be in the frame. So if I was only using, say, 1/320th of a second, it wouldn't be as much black in the frame as 1/500th of a second. Same thing if I use 1/1000th of a second, there's going to be even more in the frame that's not lit and cast completely into dark black emptiness. And finally, on the last photo of this set here, I thought, you know what? I know this is all about black backgrounds, but why don't I make the black background not a black background? This is still a black background, and what's actually going on here is I have a bare speed light. Again, it doesn't have to be a speed light, with a blue gel pointing directly at the background. But with that bare speed light and the blue gel, it's casting a light on the background that creates this really kind of natural vignette on the background. So the center in the image in the back is blue, but everything else kind of fades into the actual black backdrop that it is. A lot of people don't really think to light a background up that is black with color. A lot of people use a white backdrop because it's a lot easier to light a white backdrop with color than it is black, because black absorbs light. But I just wanted to point out that it's not impossible to turn a black background or a dark background into a color. Of course, you're going to need to use a higher power setting because the black is going to absorb more light, but it is possible. And of course, I needed light on me as the subject here, so I just added a nice little light here off to the side. So hey, thanks for sticking with me. I know this was a little bit of a longer video, but I don't know, hopefully you found this interesting, because if not, I am so sorry you wasted however long this was minutes of your time. But again, I'll do more in-depth videos on some of these photos in the future, but until then, you can check me out on ratelighting.com. You can follow me on all the social media places, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and things like that. Of course, if you like the video, hit the like button. It shows me that you like this video and that you want to see more of this video, and hit subscribe to follow me to check out those things that I mentioned. I'm a little tired. This is a long video to shoot. It's going to be a lot longer than the final edited video, I can assure you that. So anyway, until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Later.